It's a bitch, I tell you. It's a bitch being a woman. Hello.
Welcome to the Nobody Talks About It podcast.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Karen. And today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people might be thinking, but nobody's really saying out loud.
So let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay, so today, this episode that what we're going to be talking about today is because of you, Karen.
Wow. Because of me. This whole podcast is because of me and you.
Where the idea came from. Yes, it's because of you.
Okay,
so
me.
I'll give you some examples. So I notice, like sometimes when I go into Karen's room in the morning, she will tell me like, wow, look at your hair, Michelle. Wow, it looks great. Or sometimes when I walk into your room, it will be like, wow, your hair and your nails. Wow, look at you.
Yeah, J-Lo.
Or other times, like I walk into your room and you're like, oh, you look good. Simply, you look good. Or there'll be other times I walk in, another time you'll be like, oh, that outfit looks good on you. And I thought that, made me self-reflect or just reflect on that. And I just find that to be commendable because it's not usual that you see or hear people so giving of compliments. And usually when we give compliments, it's like on a special occasion, or you notice somebody comes in with their hair done extra special on that particular day, and then you give a compliment on that. But I noticed that you tended to give these compliments more freely, and not just to me. I think you do it, or I noticed that you do it with other women as well.
Wow, I'm honored. Yes, I do that with you. I mean, I don't do that with everybody, but
I feel honored. Wow.
It actually makes me think of the other side of that is maybe it's because people are always saying to me, like, what happened to you? You look so tired. You didn't sleep last night. What happened? Or comments about how you gain weight or lose weight. And that drives me insane.
Okay.
So today we're going to be talking about, I guess why are women hesitant to give compliments? Why are we downright mean to each other sometimes? Why are we so judgmental?
Yeah.
And instead of, lifting each other up, which I guess I do with Michelle every day in my classroom, why are we always putting each other down and making comments that are negative towards women and about women?
Yeah. And, that also made me think on this whole, giving compliments. And it also made me think of the movie that we saw. Remember, we saw that movie, or I think most of us saw the movie Barbie.
Oh, yeah.
And there was like this big speech by America Ferrera about women, how it's impossible to be a woman. And that made me think of like, women should be supporting women. But she talked about it's impossible to be a woman because you want to be thin, but you can't be too thin. Right. And she talks about having money. You need to have money, but you can't have too much money, and you shouldn't ask for money.
No sugar daddies.
Exactly. There you go. And then like you have to love being a mom, but you can't talk about your kids all the time, or
please no.
Right. And then it's like you have to be a mom, but you have to have a career, but you can't be too successful in your career because that's not a good thing, because then you're neglecting being a mom. So there's like all these contradictions that women have in their lives, or standards that we have, and it's like almost impossible to achieve. And then I think of you, and you give out these compliments, and I'm like, wow, that's something that I want to be doing more of, is focusing on lifting women up. And so that's how we came about this, or this topic came about for me.
Yeah, so I think my curiosity stems from, why are we like that? Because I'm certainly like this sometimes. And I think we have our theories here. Michelle and Karen's theories are going to be presented. And I think what sticks out to me first is that
Uh-huh.
life has this way of constantly letting you know that like you're not good enough or that you should be doing something else. There's this bar that has been raised and this unseen standard that is impossible to meet.
An unseen standard. What is the standard?
Well, maybe it's seen. Maybe it is seen, but I guess it's not totally clear what the standard is. It's constantly there. It's an unreasonable standard set by society. What I mean by that is there's a standard of beauty, right? That we need to meet, but that's
Right.
not necessarily like defined somewhere. Yes, we see pictures on in advertisements on the TV, on social media, but beauty is different for everyone, right? How we
Well,
should
yeah.
look, how much we should weigh.
No, well, the beauty thing is really big. I mean, definitely big. And when it comes to beauty, you need to be pretty, but you can't be too pretty because if you're too pretty, women are going to bash you in some way, shape, or form,
Or if
right?
you go out and like you have to look good, but you can't be too hot because then you'll be slutty. So you have to be like hot, classy.
Exactly.
Like how do you be hot and classy? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, like
Right.
we're set up, I think. What I'm trying to say about this standard and this bar that we have to meet, we're constantly set up to compare ourselves.
Right. I agree. Well, and I think this unseen standard or this standard that we're talking about, well, like we just said, it's not clear. I think sometimes we can take education and put a rubric and let's provide a rubric to it. Like, what is the standard? Because nobody knows what it is, and everybody has a different standard, right?
Right.
And
You
it's
you might like blondes and I'm brunette and maybe you don't like me, but I'm still hot classy, but I'm not for you.
exactly. So that standard, that unseen standard, is very dependent on your individual opinion or individual taste,
Mhm.
and therefore, how many millions of women are out there? We all have different ideas. We all have different opinions and tastes, and so it's virtually impossible to meet the standard because everybody's different and everybody
Yeah,
has
there's
something
there's no
different.
way to be successful really when
It's
it
a
comes
bitch, I
to
tell you. It's a
to
bitch
that.
being a woman.
And that leads if you are hard on yourself or a sensitive person, like it affects your self-esteem, I think, when you're seeing especially now I think with the scrolling and the Instagram and all of that, like you're constantly comparing yourself and thinking like, "Oh, well, maybe I should look like this or do this."
Right. Constantly comparing and going, the theory of why are women doing this? It's you're comparing. If you see somebody who's doing slightly better than you are going to then look at them and say, "Oh, okay, she's like me. That's good. We're the same." But you notice that she does something different, whatever it may be, and then that's you're gonna knock her down by boosting yourself
Mhm.
up, right? You're gonna say, "Oh, I'm better here. I do this better, or I look better in this way." So we tend to do that. We tend to compare people to give ourselves a boost, but
Mhm.
at the same time we're knocking somebody else down in order to
Well,
get that.
it's like if you're dating someone and you look at a picture of their ex-girlfriend and you're like, "Oh, well, I'm prettier. Okay, it's okay."
Exactly, there you go. And I've done that for sure. I'm like, I'm like way prettier.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if the person you're with is talking about someone from their work or something, and then you immediately look them up and you're like, "Oh, okay. Not a threat." Or maybe a threat, you know?
Right, exactly, and that's how it's seen. It's seen as a threat, right? And rather than looking at it something as positive, we're taking it as a threat. Like they
Mhm.
are just as good as me in this area. Okay, they're a little better here, or they do something different here. I don't have that skill, but that's something that I need to work on.
Mhm.
Whatever. But we take it as a threat, and we tend to then turn our backs and then whisper behind their back or say something.
But that's because our bodies are programmed when we are in stressful situations or
Uh huh.
threatening situations. Our body is programmed to react. I mean, you've heard of flight and fight, flight versus fight mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when we are exposed maybe to women who could threaten us,
Mm-hmm.
many people I think go into fight mode where it's like, I mean, not
Yes.
me. I
Okay.
wouldn't personally like confront that person, but I
No.
would maybe put them down behind their backs to make myself feel better.
Right, which proves that women are competitive
Mhm.
and they would fight, but not necessarily physically. It's like this maybe passive aggressive type of
Oh
fighting,
yeah. Oh yeah.
or the gossiping or the talking behind the back, or they're nice to you when then you're in front of them, but then as soon as you walk away, they're saying or, nitpicking at something that, you're the way you look, the way you dress, what you said, how you said it, um, any of a million things that they could say or we could say.
Yeah.
So
Did you
definitely, definitely.
know? Did you know?
I think this deserves music because this seems like an important
Okay.
stat
All right. All
or
right.
fact.
All right. I was reading
Uh-huh.
an article about competitiveness, and
Oh,
I think this is another theory we have about for why women are this way. And it talked about how we know males have this reputation of being very direct and confrontational if they're
right,
competitive, but it said that women are not as direct,
right.
but they're also less likely, the term to use was quotes, less likely to fizzle. So competitive behaviors in females are less likely to fizzle. And women are less prepared than men to resolve their same sex peers. So, what does that mean? We hold our grudges, we keep them, we don't forget them. We feel these competitive things with our friends, with strangers, with whomever, and we don't let those go. And we are not even looking to necessarily resolve them. We're not prepared to resolve them. Again, this is just when it comes to women with same sex peers, women with women.
Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Could you think of somebody in your life where every time you see them, you might think, oh, here's Jane. She gets on my nerves. She always thinks that, she's the best mom, always bragging about her kids. I don't know, like, and you won't say anything to her about it, obviously,
Right, right.
but it like festers inside of you,
Yeah, if
like
there's a personality trait of someone or something that someone has that maybe you don't have, and it's like it's not going to fizzle until maybe you have that thing, right?
right. So, for example, if you and a friend are up for a promotion and your friend gets it, you're happy for her, you congratulate her, but inside, you're thinking to yourself, like, why did she get it? Like, I'm better than her in this, this, and this, and I should get it. So that's where the passive aggressive might start. You might go to meetings and you might say things or do things that might undermine your friend in her position. Or you might send an email that might, boost yourself and like not make the friend who got the permission look good. I mean, there are those types of situation. That would be like an example, I think.
Yeah,
No?
or just act a little passive aggressive to your friend, or if like I don't know, your friend is like, "Oh, how am I doing in this job?" You might say like, "Oh, yeah, well this is good," but, not being fully genuine because inside you're jealous, which is normal because we're all jealous. I mean,
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. I don't know anyone who's not jealous. No, and I think another thing that causes us to have these feelings is that we've talked about this in previous episode, this idea of you have to check these boxes in your life, right? And there's a sort of designated road or path, which is the typical road or path that most people follow in
Right.
terms of, career, partner, marriage, kids. And in my situation, if you're not taking that path, you're constantly asking yourself, are you behind? Are you doing enough? My life choices have made me feel like I am behind where I should be as a 39-year-old woman.
Right. And exactly. There is that path, the path in quotes, that people are supposed to take. And then if you're not taking that path, a woman who is choosing a career and is not necessarily married or had kids or is married but doesn't have kids, then women are, or not just women, society might be judging them. Like,
Mhm.
look at her, she's being selfish because she wants to have a career as opposed to, be on the path that everybody else is on.
Right. And
So,
going back to how your body responds, you immediately, like when you're being confronted in this way, thinking that you're not good enough, what do? You turn into fight mode, right? So then maybe you're putting people down or you're creating these narratives in your head like, well, yeah, she has 3 kids, but I'm sure she's not able to do this or this or this, or look at how she takes care of herself or this,
right,
right?
she looks so frumpy. Look at her. She's so frumpy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Exactly. Right. So,
But it's hard. It's hard when you're not on that normal path. Like I've had this conversation with one of my really good friends, and she's similar to me, similar in age, not married, doesn't have kids, really wants to have kids, not as undecided as I am. And we've talked about when our mutual friends get pregnant, she's like, Karen, of course, I'm so happy for her, but it's really hard to hear. It's really hard when your friends are advancing, and getting engaged and having kids, and you're not. Even if you don't necessarily want that, because it's reflecting back on you that you don't have that. And then you start to think, should I have that? And that causes these feelings of aggression and sort of like comparing that we've been talking about.
but does it necessarily cause you to think or not support a person, right? So I see what you're saying. Like, I'm comparing myself to another woman who has kids. Maybe um, she could stay home. And
No, I think
I,
especially if it's a friend, of course you're happy for them. It
right,
doesn't take away the happiness, the genuine feeling that you have for them, but I think it's more of a reflection of yourself that you start to maybe feel bad about yourself. And in some cases that could cause, I think, women to put each other down or to talk maybe behind their back or something like that.
right. So maybe then you might, criticize them for something. I don't know. Did you go to their house? Did you see how messy it was? Something as
Right.
insignificant as that. Like, you know what I'm saying? And you who doesn't have kids, say for not you specifically, but someone who doesn't have kids, say for example, you go to their house and it's spotless, and so like maybe something as that, like, oh, she doesn't know how
Yeah.
to take care of her house or she can't take care of the house. Look at
And
it.
it might be subconscious that you're having. I would say for myself, I don't necessarily make these comments out loud or would say anything bad to anybody, but I'm in my head, I'm thinking, and maybe I'm having these thoughts. And it might
Right,
be
exactly.
subconscious because it's like, well, I'm trying to convince myself that my path is okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So definitely I see that comparing or because you're not following that path. Um Also, I did a little research on this topic when I started to think about it, and sometimes why women, or in the past, this also relates to a topic that we talked about in another episode. So another thing would be like, um limited resources. I researched, right? So I was watching, and reading about this topic and seeing how women are very, competitive because of the limited resources. So going back into like the 1950s, right? Or even earlier, women were competitive in getting a man because a woman needed a man for survival, as we talked about in another episode. And so we were competing against each other. And so it was like, I have to look better than her. I have to be better than her. I have to, because
Yeah.
I needed to get that limited resource, which was a man that was able to provide so you could stay home and live comfortably. And the same thing with careers. As much as we say,
I
like
mean, hold
women,
on, pause. Men are still limited resources. just just saying that it was a limited resource back then, but I think men are still limited resources.
okay, but at this point or at this day and age, what I mean by that is, oh, yes, maybe I do agree men are still limited resources, but women don't have to rely on that resource anymore to survive, right? Hallelujah. So
Yes.
we're able to now be self sufficient without that man. So men, in that sense, were a limited resources. And yes, they are still today. But also within a career, we say it's the same thing for careers. We say that, like, hey, women are equal and women can do the same job. But when it comes to having a career in a certain field or just, in different areas, it's much more difficult for women to achieve a higher status, and women are competing to get that coveted spot, whatever spot it may be. And so in that turn, we're putting another woman down so that way I can get the spot that I need. So that was the
Right.
theory behind the competitiveness. Like, we're always competing for something that's very limited in for us. Would you
Right.
agree?
Yeah. Putting people down to get ahead. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Definitely.
And I
Um
think the last thing that maybe we haven't hit on yet for why women are like this is because of the previous shit that we've been through.
What do you mean, Karen? I feel like that belongs music too. Like, I like the music.
All
What is the
right, all right.
previous shit?
I mean, Mean Girls, I don't know, childhood experiences. Mean Girls growing up have made us, I think, bitter and untrusting towards women. Sometimes we're cautious towards other women because of how we've been treated. For example, when I was 17
Hmm.
and had my second boyfriend, the first one lasted 2 weeks. This was boyfriend number two that we were like 2 weeks in. And I found out that like my best friend, who was like my sister, was dating him as well. And this
Oh,
was like my first experience with a guy, with a friend with my guy. And ever since then, I have trust issues with women. And I'm bitter. I'm bitter. And this is like over 20 years later. But I feel like that impacted me because that was my first experience, you know?
most
So
definitely. Yeah.
it made me jaded. It made me feel cautious towards other women, which again, sometimes might be manifested in me being mean or not being as open as I would like to be.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people could relate to that experience. I definitely can, where I have a boyfriend, and then it turns out that uh, my girlfriend, or who I thought was my friend, ends up dating my boyfriend, right? Or steals my boyfriend away. I mean, that most definitely impacts how you see women or how you trust women in your lives. And that happens even with married women like myself, where there's an over flirtatious woman with your husband, and it's like, what is she doing? And right away, I will get catty, most definitely, and I will also get protective, and
Mhm.
it's like, and I think it's that, like, she might be behaving, we judge them, and we're like, "Oh my god, what a slut, what a whore," we say these very negative things, but it could be because of the theory of the limited resources, or the path theory that we were talking about. I'm on a path, I'm married, I have kids, I have a husband, we have a home, the path that you're supposed to be, but she might not be on that path, and she's trying to achieve
Nope.
that path
Yeah.
and wants that path, and so she's seeking it in the wrong places. But, that is why they're behaving in that way. And that's going to cause me to be like, whore, slut, like, like put her down automatically. Um, so it could be in that, even in married, those situations happen.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. But I got a question for you. Okay,
Oh,
so
no.
you've heard from us. We're both like this as well. I'm like this, Michelle is like this, but
Yes.
I don't know if all women are like this. Do all women feel these things inside at times?
Wow. That's a deep question. Do all women feel this way? Wow. Oh gosh, I think yes, all women are like this in some shape or form. They are all like this. Whether it's the pretty factor because I'm jealous that you're prettier than me, or at least I think you're prettier than me, or it could be a work competition or on sports, all women are some way catty, gossipy, backstabbing, treacherous to each other, I think. Um,
That's a bold statement. All.
I know.
I I do
All.
think
I said
I do
all.
think we have these thoughts, but we might not all act on them or actually say something or do something, but it's human to have these thoughts where of comparison, of competition with each other.
Yes. And I think um and that is because I am, maybe it's my generation. I hear it or I see it um in my workplace or outside of my workplace, whether I'm like in a family meeting or I'm at work. That's why I found you so unique, because you gave the compliments and you give the compliments and you give them freely, not just to me, but to other people at work. And I find that to be something admirable, or and something to follow in those footsteps to lift women up.
So solution number 1, give
Oh,
compliments. No,
yes,
but
exactly.
before we get into the solutions, just as a summary, we've talked about, our theories for why women are like this. We've talked about the standard, the unseen standard that society places on us and how that can lead to self-esteem and comparison and things like that.
Right.
We talked about the idea of this road that is the typical road to follow, and how not following it and making different choices could cause you to feel bad about yourself or what you're doing. We've talked about the idea of competition and how competitive women are towards each other. And
Yeah.
then we've talked about, yeah, just how your past life experiences might cause you to be wary and,
Most definitely there. Yeah.
yeah, cautious towards women. So, yeah, going back to the solutions, Michelle solutions. What do you got? What do you got for us here?
Well, I got to tell you, the first solution is to recognize that you are actually, in doing it, like whether it be out loud saying something passive aggressive or just thinking about it, right? So recognize that you're doing that. And not to talk badly about other women would be solution two, not to engage in that, or to throw them under the bus, right? Which we sometimes quickly do. We hear people talking and we join in. And rather than joining in, we should stop it and not allow or not engage in that. So my solutions would be: one, recognize that you're doing it, and rather than to engage, um, spin the positive, give the positive. Yeah.
Find something
Get
good about that person, even if they're
exactly.
always, talking about their promotions.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. If you hear them doing it, don't engage. Respond by saying, like, what do you mean by that? And then, trying to stop that. And then assume best intentions. Like, a lot of us walk around thinking that maybe they're not doing, or they're doing or behaving in a certain way for negative reasons, but or for reasons that we do not know, but we're just assuming these negative reasons. So assume best intentions, and give credit where credit is due, like Karen does. I walk in and she sits there, your hair looks beautiful, and I'm like, thank you, you made my day, and makes me feel good.
and also I think reflect if you are feeling that sort of rivalry towards someone else. It's probably because they have something that maybe you want, and maybe instead of like harboring that resentment or
Right.
anger inside of you, go up to that person and be like, give them a compliment.
Right. Give them a compliment or ask them, like, how do you do that?
Mhm.
Admitting to yourself that there is, like, maybe this deficiency within yourself that you are not feeling proud of. And so, how do you get beautiful hair, Michelle? Well, you go to the salon.
And you don't live in
Often.
You don't live in Panama, except we do.
Yeah.
I think there's one other strategy that I want to add to that has helped for me. Going back to my friend that I mentioned earlier and how we share and relate to each other when another person we know gets pregnant or gets engaged, and we're like, yes, inside happy, but also inside like reflecting. I think it's just helpful to just not make it so taboo that you feel these things. Like, talk about it.
Exactly.
When she sent me that voice message, and she was like, of course I'm thrilled for her, I'm happy for her, but and just talk about that, because you might realize that there are more people that feel the same way that you do, and it's normal to feel envy, and it doesn't mean you're not happy for them. But it is a reminder of maybe something you have or something you don't have, and realizing that other people are also in that same situation, or even
Right.
go, from my situation. Yeah, I don't have kids, but maybe my friend, if I say like, oh yeah, it's really hard because, I think I want kids and I'm almost 40 and blah, blah, blah. And then that friend could turn around and share what it is about my life that maybe they are admiring or envious of, right?
Exactly.
And put it on the table.
Yes. Women need women, right? Women need
Yes.
women for stability, for security, for emotional connection, and to empower each other. So rather than us tearing each other down and being catty, let's empower each other and support each other and admire what's good and support and improve each other. Hallelujah. Amen, sister.
And there you have it. Thank you for joining us. Let
Uh,
us know if you have strategies, what you
yeah.
do.
Yeah. Share your ideas in the comments below. And until next time,
See you later.
bye.
Bye.
Congratulations and thanks for listening.
We really appreciate it.
You made it to the end.
There we go. Remember to follow our show and comment below.
And if you really liked us,
Connect with us on social media at the Nobody Talks About It podcast.
until next time.
Bye.